welcome back to our channel. Join us as we navigate the intricate maze of relationships, providing insight and guidance every step of the way. Recently, a noticeable transformation had embraced Owen's mornings, arriving each day with the first rays of sunlight filtering through the curtains. Instead of waking up with groggy reluctance, Owen now awoke with a palpable eagerness, a racing heartbeat, and a mind brimming with energy for the potential the day held. This shift wasn't merely the consequence of restful sleep or a balanced diet. It was a deeper, more intimate change. Owen was living his dream, a vision he had nurtured and yearned for as far back as he could recall. The passage of time had not been in vain. Having embarked on a thrilling new journey filled with passion and purpose, he had fulfilled his aspiration of becoming the proud proprietor of a bustling restaurant. Every facet, from the shimmering chandeliers to the cheerful banter amongst his kitchen staff, stood as a testament to his unwavering dedication and tireless effort. The alluring scent of freshly baked Roman bread wafting from the kitchen, the soft hum of enthusiastic customers, and the animated clinking of serving dishes collectively formed the realization of his once-dreamt dream. However, today was an anomaly. Owen found himself gazing vacantly at a computer screen, his thoughts in a chaotic swirl, his mind clamoring. Despite the contagious excitement that had accompanied his initial months as a restaurant owner, an anomaly had surfaced, causing a crease in his otherwise smooth journey. It was an issue he hadn't anticipated contending with from the outset. Certainly, during the initial stages of ensuring security, Owen wasn't inexperienced. He held an understanding that potential threats could emerge from within the organization itself. Regrettably, he was well aware that companies often face the necessity of addressing employee theft or misconduct. However, this was a luxury Owen couldn't afford. His restaurant remained in its early phases, a critical juncture where each decision could either propel it forward or potentially hinder the hard-earned progress. Just as circumstances appeared to be exceeding his initial expectations, an unsettling revelation left his stomach churning with unease. Seated in front of his computer, Owen meticulously examined security footage that unveiled a young dishwasher, one of his employees, awkwardly maneuvering a suspiciously large bag toward the exit. This unforeseen scene triggered alarm bells within his mind. What made it even more disconcerting was the timing. A mere 3 days had elapsed since the installation of security cameras in the restaurant, a choice that now felt remarkably prescient. It was important to clarify that Owen's original intent hadn't been to apprehend anyone caught in the act of wrongdoing. He had merely intended to evaluate the new security system, gauge its memory capacity, and assess the camera's performance. Owen wasn't inherently distrustful or suspicious of people. In fact, he had always nurtured a belief in the integrity of his staff and strived to cultivate a foundation of trust within his team. Yet, as Owen remained fixated on the footage, a troubling cascade of thoughts insidiously invaded his mind. What if this had been ongoing since the very start? He pondered, sowing seeds of doubt that took root and began to taint his once optimistic perspective. Doubt morphed into determination. He stood up from his chair, the realization clear in his mind that if indeed theft had infiltrated his establishment, it demanded immediate and resolute action. Such actions couldn't be condoned, and the issue required immediate intervention to prevent its escalation. Owen was resolute in addressing the problem head-on, though a momentary pang of hesitation tempered his stride. The young dishwasher was practically a child. Her visage, brimming with youth and an air of innocence, seemed incongruous with Owen's mental image of a thief. Yet, amid this internal struggle, a more insidious idea began to take root. What if she was remarkably adept at deception? What if her seemingly innocent demeanor concealed a shrewdly concealed agenda? The restaurant was scheduled to close for the night in half an hour, a routine occurrence. The manager and the young dishwasher consistently remained as the final staff on the premises. The establishment boasted a distinctive back door, secured exclusively from within. Typically, the dishwasher undertook the necessary preparations, after which the manager would lock the door internally before exiting through the main entrance. Owen, who who resided merely a few blocks away, enjoyed remote access to the security footage. Confronted with a disconcerting revelation, Owen made a swift decision. He opted to embark on the brief 7-minute drive to the restaurant, aiming to assess the situation firsthand. While he felt uneasy about the notion of observing his employees surreptitiously, he deemed it essential to validate his concerns. Swiftly, he slipped behind the wheel of his car and drove to a concealed spot within the restaurant's parking lot, nestled within the shadows. There, he waited, his breath heavy with anticipation. Imminently, the dishwasher girl would emerge from the restaurant's rear door. Chloe, the young dishwasher, emerged, meticulously adjusting a petite bonnet atop a little head. "Gaze upon you, my dear. You're such a good girl today. Hang in there, sweetheart. Mommy will take you out soon," she whispered, her voice infused with both love and a trace of weariness, ensuring that every detail was just right. Chloe double-checked the bag's contents. A discreet opening had been ingeniously crafted at the back, permitting a flow of fresh air. This ensured that the small occupant within, named Layla, would not be deprived of oxygen. Layla rested contentedly within her makeshift sanctuary, her innocent countenance tranquil, blissfully ignorant of the outside world. Having been nourished merely 20 minutes earlier, Chloe anticipated Layla would soon slip into a peaceful slumber. As a young single mother wrestling with the challenge of balancing work and tending to her infant, Chloe found herself with no alternative but to bring Layla to her workplace. She had ingeniously devised this covert cradle, ingeniously concealed within a capacious bag, guaranteeing Layla's safety and comfort while she performed her duties. Chloe was acutely cognizant that her current arrangement was far from ideal and inherently unsustainable. Over the long haul, the risks she faced were substantial, and the potential consequences grave. The revelation of her secret could potentially lead to her losing custody of Layla, a prospect she found too horrifying to contemplate. Yet, desperation had left her with minimal alternatives. As a single mother with limited support, she had no choice but to make the best of her circumstances. The absence of affordable childcare options within her precarious financial circumstances had compelled her to take this drastic measure. Chloe might have circumvented this perilous situation by exploring child support or financial assistance programs designed explicitly for single parents. Such resources could potentially have furnished her with the means to ensure Layla's proper care, enabling her to focus on her work without anxiety. However, a solitary event in her past had rendered these avenues ineffective or unattainable. A previous ordeal had left her cautious, prompting her to make the deliberate choice of confronting her challenges independently, propelled by sheer desperation. Chloe had once endeavored to apply for food stamps. The memory of the day she stood in line at the office handling such applications remained vivid. She felt vulnerable and apprehensive. Amidst her wait, a passing couple captured her attention, their conversation carrying to her on the breeze. "These individuals are squandering taxpayers' money," their tone laden with judgment, cutting like a sharp knife through her aspirations and leaving her feeling diminished and humiliated. Recollections of gazing downward at the floor, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment, remained strong. When she dared to lift her gaze, she encountered the couple's expressions filled with disdain and scorn, the impact akin to a physical blow when her turn came to apply for assistance. The couple's words reverberated in her ears, growing louder and more venomous with each repetition. Eventually, the turmoil became unbearable. Overwhelmed by shame and fear, she could bear it no longer. With these emotions churning within her, she stepped away from the line, abandoning her application. Chloe's personal reserves were dwindling at an alarming rate. Necessities like baby formula, diapers, and rent were swiftly depleting her modest savings. It seemed she stood on the precipice of financial disaster. A glimmer of optimism emerged. News reached her about a new restaurant opening in the town that was actively hiring. During the interview, her thoughts spiraled with anxiety and uncertainty. The challenge of balancing work and childcare loomed large. The job was imperative, she couldn't afford to decline it. Yet, her options for childcare were markedly limited. A benevolent neighbor had offered to babysit, but only for 2 days each week and under the stipulation that Chloe reciprocate by cleaning her house. The first glimpse of the dishwasher ignited an audacious notion within Chloe's mind. This concept was daring, fraught with risk, and seemed almost impossibly far-fetched. Though this notion incited anxiety, circumstances left Chloe feeling as though she had nothing to lose. Upon commencing her work at the restaurant, Layla was but a month old. A placid infant, Layla exhibited contentment and tranquility, attributes that worked in Chloe's favor. Chloe discreetly positioned the baby in a corner of a seldom-used dish room. She went to extraordinary lengths to ensure the area remained spotless and devoid of dust. It was a measure born out of dire necessity, and every day, Chloe lived in dread. The room was well illuminated, offering just enough space for a small, improvised cradle. Chloe harbored an ever-present fear of discovery, yet for the moment, her precarious arrangement seemed to be holding up. Within this hidden space, little Layla remained secure, allowing Chloe to retain her employment. Chloe's life had been shadowed by adversity since her early years. The loss of her parents in a car accident when she was a mere 4 years old had left a profound impact. The weight of that bereavement only truly struck her around the age of 10, by which time the harsh reality of orphanhood had set in immediately following the tragedy. Chloe's grandmother, her mother's own mother, had stepped in to assume her care. This matriarch possessed a somewhat romantic disposition. Mundane household tasks hardly concerned her, fostering Chloe's early development of independence. She became adept at managing all domestic chores single-handedly, a skill that would stand her in good stead later in life. As her grandmother aged and grew increasingly frail, Chloe found herself grappling with the considerable challenges of juggling her studies and providing care for her beloved elder. Thankfully, her neighbors, the Lees, often extended their helping hand, easing the burden of the ailing elderly woman and mitigating their own sense of isolation. These neighbors cherished the opportunity to engage with others. On a particular afternoon, Mrs. Natalie Lay made her way to Chloe's residence, with the simple intention of enjoying a warm conversation with Chloe's grandmother. Knocking on the front door, Mrs. Natalie's greeting was met with only a faint, almost inaudible groan. The door remained locked. Undeterred, Mrs. Natalie circled around the house and entered through the back door. The scene she encountered was deeply disconcerting. Chloe's grandmother lay sprawled on the floor, incapacitated by a heart attack. Mrs. Natalie's swift intervention enabled her to promptly summon an ambulance, potentially rescuing the elderly woman's life. As time progressed, Chloe's life unfolded, and falling in love with David had occurred all too naturally for her. A naive young woman, she longed for the love and attention she had been deprived of during her upbringing. David filled this void, providing her with a sense of belonging and emotional connection she had desperately yearned for in the absence of familial affection. Following her grandmother's passing, she extended the offer for David to move in with her, a proposition he eagerly embraced. Yet, when she discovered her pregnancy and shared the news with David, his response was the last thing she had expected. He vanished. He ceased to respond to her messages, ignored her calls, and never returned home. Chloe was left alone, pregnant and bewildered. She had felt genuine affection for David, or at least she had believed she did. In hindsight, she questioned whether she truly understood what love entailed. She was still grappling with its meaning. All she knew was that she had genuinely aspired to construct a life with him, to co-parent their child together. However, David's sudden disappearance had shattered that dream. As weeks stretched into a month and David remained conspicuously absent, the harsh reality gradually dawned upon Chloe. Pregnant and without his support, she had to confront the situation unaccompanied. It was a daunting realization, one laced with a profound sense of betrayal and disappointment. She had made a monumental misjudgment, placed her trust in the wrong person, and now she was grappling with the consequences. Amid these challenging circumstances, Chloe reached a pivotal decision. She resolved never to place herself in such a vulnerable situation again. Determined to become stronger, wiser, and more cautious, Chloe embraced this mindset as she welcomed little Layla into the world. A sense of tranquility persisted until an unexpected day when her grandmother's half-sister, Brianna, reappeared after years of absence. Upon learning of her half-sister's passing, Brianna appeared unannounced at Chloe's doorstep. Her malicious intentions were evident as she issued threats, coercing Chloe to vacate the house voluntarily. Rage surged within Chloe, yet she found herself rendered powerless. Brianna possessed the means to engage lawyers and manipulate the legal system to her advantage. In stark contrast, Chloe possessed only her determination and the well-being of her newborn daughter to consider. Brianna swiftly executed her sinister designs. Before Chloe could fully comprehend the unfolding events, she was ousted from her refuge. The Natalies, empathetic neighbors, extended their protective shelter to Chloe, but Brianna responded with hostility. She issued ominous threats, warning Chloe against meddling in others' affairs under penalty of dire consequences. Despite this hostile environment, Natalie continued to offer Chloe temporary refuge. Emotionally overwhelmed, Chloe found the neighborhood a constant source of painful memories. She had grown mistrustful of everything, which ultimately prompted her decision to depart and express her gratitude to her compassionate neighbors. Leaving her former life behind, Chloe embarked on a fresh chapter marked by challenging circumstances. Her job became her lifeline, providing a weekly paycheck that alleviated concerns about her next meal. Carefully placing the bag on the ground, Chloe securely shut the door. Upon turning around, she found herself confronted by the restaurant's owner in an unexpected encounter. The abrupt meeting caused her to gasp, and Owen's demeanor grew stern. His voice carried a hint of suspicion as he pointed to the bag, inquiring about its unusually large size. Chloe instinctively shielded the bag with her body, explaining, "It's not what you think, sir. I haven't stolen anything." Owen's expression shifted from a momentary grin to a more serious countenance. Curiosity lingered as he prodded further, "Then what is it?" The implication of police involvement loomed as an option. Chloe let out a cautious sigh, realizing her plan had been prematurely unveiled. To compound her distress, Layla, her baby, began to stir. As Layla settled down, Chloe unzipped the bag, revealing its unexpected contents. Owen's breath caught in a moment of astonishment. He exclaimed, "What on earth is that, your baby?" After a brief pause, Owen added, "Did you bring your baby to work?" Chloe's focus remained on her child, her mind only vaguely registering Owen's inquiries. Tenderly lifting Layla from the bag, Chloe cradled her in her arms. Owen looked away, his expectations clearly confounded. Expressing his sentiment in a lighter tone, a colleague named Leo chimed in, "Ah, come on, man. I was hoping for something more exciting, like a theft." Leo's gaze softened as he looked at the small, unexpected presence of the baby. "Why did you bring your baby to work?" "That could lead to legal trouble." Owen's voice carried a mix of concern and sternness. Chloe met his gaze, a hint of fear in her eyes. "I'm truly sorry, sir. I had no other option," she explained, pausing briefly before asking, "Are you going to fire me?" Owen's response was immediate, though not definitive. No. I mean, I'm not certain yet. This situation." Owen trailed off, glancing around and checking his watch. "Listen, let's stand up. Do you need a lift to get home? Let's leave before others notice." "It's not necessary." Chloe quickly responded, "Thank you, but I live nearby, just a few blocks away." Owen's suspicions waned, replaced by understanding. He offered his assistance, saying, "All right. Let me help you with the bag." Owen's initial doubts shattered in the face of Chloe's reality. The shocking revelation of her bringing her baby to work exposed the depth of desperation that had driven her to such extremes due to unaffordable childcare. They walked together, eventually reaching a small mobile home. Owen hesitated, not wanting to bid farewell immediately. He waited until Chloe had unlocked the door and stepped inside. Chloe held the baby and glanced at Owen, expressing her gratitude with a wordless look. "Hey, can I trouble you for a glass of water?" Owen quickly interjected. "Sure. Is tap water all right, or do you prefer bottled water?" he inquired. Chloe responded, "Tap water is fine. I'll take whatever you have." As she retrieved the water, thoughts raced through her mind. She contemplated whether Owen might permit her to keep her job while having Layla with her, but quickly dismissed the idea, believing such an outcome to be unlikely. Returning with the glass of water, Chloe handed it to Owen before attending to the baby's needs. Meanwhile, Owen sat on the porch, pondering the situation as he sipped his water. His thoughts swirled in a maze of confusion, and with a deep sigh, he cast his mind back to the day when he had first hired Chloe. She had portrayed herself as a solitary soul with no family ties. Slowly, a tinge of frustration began to build within him. He reproached himself for not being more thorough, for not perceiving the underlying issue before extending the job offer. His intentions weren't driven by greed or callousness, rather, he bore the weight of numerous obligations, and this particular challenge had blindsided him. He acknowledged that he couldn't simply ignore Chloe's predicament. The situation served as a stark reminder of Owen's own turbulent upbringing. He had been raised amidst the struggle of alcoholic parents, a tumultuous environment that led to his removal from their care at the tender age of 13, landing him in foster care. Often, he mused about the alternate trajectory his life might have taken had he not been taken from his parents. There were moments when he contemplated the disheartening possibility of mirroring their difficulties. As the years passed, a growing resentment festered toward his biological parents for tarnishing his childhood with their alcoholism. He had distanced himself from them entirely. As he drained the last remnants from his glass, an onslaught of tasks awaiting him at the restaurant surged back to the forefront of his mind. The urge to simply turn and walk away gripped him momentarily. He couldn't shake the feeling that, in light of the recent revelation, Chloe might not return to work anyway. Placing the glass gently on the porch, he commenced his departure. Inside, as Chloe concluded changing Angel's diaper, her gaze fell upon Owen walking away. A notion fluttered within her, prompting the consideration of approaching him to plead for her job's preservation despite the circumstances. Yet, upon reflection, Chloe recognized that Owen had already extended considerable compassion. Most other employers might have reprimanded her severely, or even terminated her employment with a heavy heart. Torn between gratitude and her predicament, Chloe retreated indoors and sank onto the well-worn sofa. It felt as though her world had crumbled anew. An encroaching wave of panic began to take hold, a familiar emotion she had grappled with repeatedly in the past, pushing her back to square one. The imperative to unearth a solution spurred her mind into a frenzy. Thoughts raced as she attempted to map out her next steps. She realized she needed to secure a dependable caretaker for Layla, recognizing that the option of bringing her to work was no longer tenable. The revelation of her secret had illuminated the potential hazards, compelling her to prioritize her baby's well-being without compromise. Meanwhile, Owen strolled through the trailer park, his attention caught by an elderly woman who fixed him with a stern look. In an effort to alleviate any tension, he offered a friendly greeting. The woman managed a smile, yet her expression remained resolute. From a distance, she inquired, "Is this girl your girlfriend?" Taken aback, Owen replied, "Excuse me." I inquired, "Are you in a relationship with this young lady?" The woman repeated, indicating Chloe's house. Owen responded, "No, ma'am. I was just helping her with her bag," his voice tinged with a hint of bewilderment. The woman continued, So you're a stranger to her." Her gaze returned to her flower bed as she added, I just thought you should know she'll be evicted if she doesn't pay her rent." Owen's steps gradually slowed, and after a few paces, he came to a halt. A sudden urge prompted him to delve deeper, to gain a more comprehensive understanding of Chloe's circumstances. Approaching the lady, who was now engrossed in tending to her flowers, Owen engaged in conversation. The woman revealed that Chloe had moved in around 3 months ago as an act of goodwill. She had extended Chloe a modest rent discount, contingent on payments made every 2 weeks, such was their agreement. As Owen bid farewell to the lady and resumed his path homeward, he yearned to set the day's events aside and find rest. Yet, his mind resisted, repeatedly returning to thoughts of Chloe and her predicament. Eventually, sleep proved elusive, and he surrendered the pursuit altogether. Rising from his bed, Owen found himself drawn once more to the security footage. Skimming through the previous day's recordings, he observed Chloe departing the restaurant, cradling her baby in a small plastic bag. She lingered outside for nearly 20 minutes, perplexing Owen with her actions. Subsequently, a man appeared, disheveled in appearance, carrying a backpack. He accepted the plastic bag from Chloe and placed it within his backpack. Following a brief embrace, they headed in separate directions. The next day, Owen ventured to Chloe's residence, hoping to converse with her. However, the house sat vacant. Determined, he resolved to reapproach her landlord for insights. The landlord informed Owen that Chloe had visited the previous evening, hinting at a potential move. "I told her I have bills to pay as well," the landlord explained, "and if she plans to leave, she'll need to settle the remaining rent." Owen inquired about the amount she owed, to which the landlord responded, "She owes $175 for this month. Next month's rent is $600. Equipped with this information, Owen returned to the restaurant, bracing for a demanding day of work ahead. The pressing issue was the mounting stack of unwashed dishes in the kitchen, now without Chloe's presence. Urgency propelled him to find a replacement for the vacant dishwasher position. However, his next steps remained uncertain. Owen navigated his way to the restaurant's kitchen, prepared to roll up his sleeves and confront the accumulating pile of soiled dishes himself. To his astonishment, he discovered Chloe there, diligently scrubbing a stack of plates at her workstation, without her baby. This unexpected sight left him momentarily speechless. The storeroom appeared somewhat chaotic, and it was evident that Chloe's infant was not present. Owen cleared his throat, inadvertently startling Chloe. The clatter of spoons resounded as they fell into the sink. "Hello, Mr. Barton," Chloe greeted, her tone subdued. Owen managed a greeting in return, "Hi Chloe. I see you're back," attempting to mask his surprise. "Yes, I'm here," she confirmed, surveying the kitchen surroundings. Her gaze shifted as she added, "My little girl is being looked after right now." Chloe expressed remorse once more, acknowledging the challenges. Turning her back to him, she resumed her dishwashing task. Owen was taken aback by Chloe's reappearance, particularly without her baby, and even more astonished that she hadn't chosen to vanish entirely. Puzzled by Chloe's return, Owen questioned, "Chloe, why did you come back?" His curiosity had reached its zenith. She paused in her work, letting out a deep sigh. "I felt guilty for deceiving you," she confessed, her gaze fixed elsewhere. "You placed your trust in me and assigned me this job. The least I can do is assist you until you find a replacement. And as for Avon, my baby. Where is she?" Chloe's response held a hint of tension, punctuated by a brief pause. Reluctantly, she explained that a friend was caring for her child until the day's end. Owen made the decision to wait until Chloe's shift concluded. The forthcoming action weighed on him, but he resolved to follow her. Chloe halted before a modest dwelling, disappearing inside as Owen patiently awaited the descent of darkness. Finally, Chloe re-emerged from the dimly lit interior, cradling her baby in her arms. In the faint light, he could discern the outline of an older woman bidding Chloe farewell with a warm embrace. As Chloe embarked on her journey homeward, Owen maintained a watchful distance. Engaged in a lively dialogue with her infant, a radiant smile adorned her face. Despite the numerous trials this young woman encountered, her steadfast devotion to her child remained unwavering. Observing her determined pace and apparent lack of intent to hail a taxi, Owen surmised that Chloe intended to traverse the entire distance on foot. The sight of her carrying her baby for that entire journey proved almost too much for him to bear. Deciding to take action, he gently maneuvered his car alongside her. Stepping out, an expression of guilt etched onto his face, he addressed her, "Chloe, I'm sorry, but I've been following you since you left the restaurant," his voice heavy with remorse. "May I offer you a ride home?" His words hung in the air, tentative yet sincere. Chloe regarded him with uncertainty momentarily before gradually making her way toward his vehicle. Observing her softening stance, he promptly opened the rear door, accompanied by a reassuring smile. The initial moments of the drive passed in silence, the unspoken weight of their thoughts palpable. Eventually, they sought to break the quietude. Summoning the courage, Owen ventured a question, "Chloe, how do you manage to keep everything together?" Puzzled, she inquired softly, "What do you mean?" Owen clarified, recounting his earlier observation, "I noticed you smiling earlier, showering your daughter with so much love." Her response was hushed yet candid, "Well, I wasn't always like this. There were times when I considered giving her up." Leo found himself captivated by her candid honesty. "And what stopped you?" he asked. Chloe's gaze met his, her voice scarcely above a whisper, "Some kind people." She confirmed that those very individuals were looking after little Layla on that day. Owen pressed on with a serious tone, "Listen, Chloe. You don't have to come to work if there's no one to care for your baby. You don't owe me anything, all right?" As they reached Chloe's residence, Owen reached into his pocket, offering her a handful of cash. "It's not much," he confessed, a touch of vulnerability in his voice. "I've put a lot into the restaurant, but please accept this for tonight," Owen offered as he returned to his own abode. An unfamiliar tug at his heart stirred within him. He battled to convince himself that his emotions weren't growing attached to Chloe, that he wasn't experiencing a blossoming affection, yet a peculiar sensation of nostalgia lingered, a sentiment defying simple explanation, as he had earlier alluded. Chloe's absence left a void at the restaurant the next day, one that Owen promptly filled with a substitute. A diligent waiter managed to secure the services of an older woman to temporarily take Chloe's place. Life resumed its rhythm, returning to the familiar routine. Owen threw himself into the operation of the restaurant, the memory of Chloe fading into the background. His attention and focus were back on his business, a deliberate shift. Owen sought to justify his prior actions concerning Chloe, rationalizing that he hadn't treated her unkindly, and he had even extended financial assistance. He wished to believe that his interventions hadn't exacerbated her situation. However, the restaurant situation was far from ideal. His optimism had not matched the reality. Money flowed out at an alarming pace while the influx of customers failed to materialize. Hope for a surge of patrons lingered, but the restaurant remained quiet, driving Owen to the brink of panic. The grim prospect of closure loomed, should circumstances not improve. Yet, the tide of fortune began to change. 1 week later, on a particular evening, a sizable family entered the restaurant. They requested 4 tables to accommodate their expansive party, a departure from the norm. Ecstatic, Owen swiftly directed his staff to arrange tables that very night. The ensuing evening saw an unanticipated influx of around 20 additional patrons, culminating in a flurry of activity for the restaurant team. It was a delightful flurry, as customers continued to stream in. In a mere span of 5 days, Owen's establishment managed to recoup the capital he had expended over the past 2 months. The abrupt reversal of fortune left him astounded, prompting him to seek insight into the remarkable surge of customers. He instructed his wait staff to inquire about how these patrons had become aware of the restaurant. One customer provided an intriguing response, stating, "I was waiting at a red light when I noticed a homeless man holding a sign that read, 'If you want to help me, visit Owen's.' Initially, I didn't pay it much mind. But soon after, I encountered another woman a few blocks away with the exact same sign. It piqued my curiosity, so I stopped to inquire. She simply told me to ask Chloe." Upon receiving this revelation from a waiter, Owen promptly made his way to Chloe's residence. As he pulled up, he spotted her seated on the porch, engaged in conversation with her young child. Exiting his car, he approached her. "Hello, Mr. Barton. What brings you here?" Chloe seemed visibly surprised by his presence on her doorstep. Owen responded, "Chloe, I'm not entirely sure. Perhaps you can help shed some light on the matter. My restaurant has been unusually bustling lately, and I thought you might have some insight." Chloe appeared taken aback and confessed, "I have no idea what you're talking about. There are people advertising my restaurant all over town." Suddenly, the puzzle pieces clicked into place for Chloe. She recalled the homeless man named James she had encountered near the restaurant when she had just started working there. She had felt a surge of compassion for him, even though she lacked the means to offer substantial help. Leftover food from the restaurant had become her way of extending a helping hand, and James had accepted it with gratitude, knowing it came from a kind heart. Owen's understanding deepened as well. He remembered glimpsing Chloe engaged in conversation with someone on the surveillance footage. It all started making sense. Chloe had been consistently sharing restaurant leftovers with James, who then distributed the food to others in need. When Chloe had ceased coming to work, she had realized that James and his companions would miss their regular meals. In response, she had cooked whatever she could at home and brought James a final offering. When she had conveyed that she wouldn't be able to continue providing food, he had expressed his gratitude and inquired if there was anything he could do for her. Her request was simple: to pray for the success of Owen's business. As fate would have it, James had rallied his fellow homeless acquaintances and devised a plan to promote Owen's restaurant throughout the town. Owen found himself rendered nearly speechless, engulfed by a sense of remorse for letting Chloe go. He stewed in introspective silence, mulling over an unorthodox notion. After a brief moment, he finally broke the silence. "You know what? I want you back at the restaurant, but not as a dishwasher," he said, his voice carrying conviction. He proposed the idea of organizing a weekly charity dinner for the needy and homeless, to be held each Friday. Given the modest scale of his establishment, he could only accommodate a limited number of guests for these complimentary meals. And Chloe, he suggested, would be the one to orchestrate and oversee these events. 3 months down the line, Owen commemorated the grand opening of his second restaurant. He now boasted a dedicated group of homeless individuals who eagerly frequented the establishment every Friday for their complimentary meals. In return, they championed his restaurant, fervently spreading the word throughout the entire city. Amid these triumphs, Owen found himself growing increasingly drawn to Chloe. He couldn't help but observe that Joy was forming a stronger bond with little Angel, investing more and more time in nurturing the connection. As a few more months passed, Owen gathered the courage to broach a significant topic with Chloe, the idea of moving in together. Understandably, Chloe was cautious. While she valued Owen's affection and attention, the experiences of her past relationships had left her wary of making such substantial commitments. In Chloe's corner were the Natalies, an elderly couple who had consistently supported her. Following her grandmother's passing, they stood as the only individuals in whom Chloe felt she could confide and solicit advice. With their guidance in mind, Chloe arranged a dinner gathering at her own place, extending invitations to both Owen and the Natalies. As the appointed time approached, the Natalies arrived at Chloe's abode, presenting her with a bouquet of flowers as a gracious gesture. Owen, too, welcomed them warmly before taking a seat at the prepared table. Chloe, meanwhile, was diligently occupied with setting the table and finalizing last-minute preparations in the kitchen. As she busied herself at the stove, a knock resounded from the door, prompting Owen to offer his assistance. Chloe requested, "Owen, could you please see who that is? I need to take the turkey out." She rises from her seat, and Owen casually ambles towards the door. As he opens it, his astonishment is palpable. There, standing before him, stand his own parents. Time seems to come to a standstill for everyone except Chloe. A silence settles as they all stew in a momentary, locked stare. A few moments later, Chloe emerges from the kitchen, a look of bewilderment on her face as she takes in the unfolding scene. "Is everything all right?" she inquires, her eyes darting from one shocked face to another. Owen remains frozen in surprise, gazing at his parents whom he hasn't laid eyes on for years. His mother's eyes are brimming with unseen tears, while his father maintains a stoic demeanor, his face etched with remorse and regret. "I suppose there's some explaining to do," he concedes. Owen's father begins, his voice quivering with emotion, "I understand you're angry with us. The decisions we made in the past were dreadful and caused you pain. We deeply apologize. I'm not the same man who squandered his life through addiction," he continues, his voice gaining strength. "We've turned our lives around. We're sober now, and over the past few years, we've tried to repay our debt to society by aiding those in need." Chloe watches the unfolding scene in a state of shock, her hands fumbling with the tea towel she had been holding. The man she had come to know and care for, Owen, reveals a new layer to his life story. The elderly couple she had considered as her own family turns out to be Owen's estranged parents, filling in a missing piece in the puzzle of his life. Owen's mother took a step forward, her voice quivering with emotion. "We understand if you're still harboring anger, Owen, but we're here to make amends," she said. "Finding you here was unexpected, but now that we have, we want to try and rebuild our family, if you'll allow us." The room brimmed with sentiment, and Owen felt a tightness in his throat as he swallowed hard. A swirl of emotions clouded his mind. He gazed at Chloe, then at Layla, and finally back at his parents. "You can't just renter my life because you've turned yours around," Owen replied, his voice barely above a whisper, his signing accompanying his words. "You said goodbye to Chloe and her daughter." Chloe and Natalie exchanged a glance, the trust they had in each other evident. "If they trust you, then I suppose I can give you another chance," Owen conceded. A smile broke across his face, and it was a radiant one, filled with love, gratitude, and hope. I can't believe it," Chloe managed to say amid tears. "We're all part of this family now, more than I could ever have hoped for." The relief that washed over Owen's mother was palpable. She reached out to embrace her son, who, after a moment's hesitation, stepped into her arms. As the night deepened, the newly reunited family shared stories of the years they had missed, slowly mending old wounds and forging new bonds. Owen and his parents embarked on the gradual journey of rebuilding their relationship, while Chloe found herself, Layla, and her family a permanent home. And so, a new chapter unfolded for all of them, one defined by hope, forgiveness, and the unbreakable bond of family. This was the beginning of that chapter. I appreciate you taking the time to watch and engage with my story. I trust you found it enjoyable and gained insights from it. If that's the case, kindly show your support by giving this video a thumbs up and subscribing to my channel for more narratives of a similar nature. Your thoughts and feedback are highly valued, so please don't hesitate to share them in the comments section below. Until we meet again next time.